If you're new around here, um, welcome. My name's Jeff, and I'm walking over to the coffee shop. It's been a while, maybe a week, since I've done this. Been weather and health things, and um, but we're back at it. I do this as part of my my own daily practice. It gives me a chance to work things out, to think things out, and I invite you to walk along with me, join the conversation, join the discussion. So I host a show called Java with Jeff, and I asked the same question. I explored the same idea this morning on Java with Jeff, and several people said, anxiety, fear. There are lots of things that hold us back. And that's what I was interested in exploring is what are the obstacles between the fact, I'm curious about this. What if I did this? What if I didn't do this? What if I did more of this, less of this, etc.? What keeps us from moving from that point to actually taking action? And I was between the end of Java with Jeff and now I was doing a little bit of research on this and found the term the messy middle. So I used that in the title of this live stream today, the messy middle. Well, I'll have to explore that some more. Just on the surface, it makes sense to me. It's easy to say, well, I got curious about this. And I started to explore it more. I think exploration is probably a step that I need to add in there. Curiosity, exploration. There's things that it's not enough just to be curious and then suddenly you start believing that you can do this and then you decide to do something about it. That's too simplistic. So we probably need to put exploration in there. And then someone also mentioned that there has to be a catalyst. I think that's a really interesting idea. That's an important idea. You're not going to take action without a catalyst. So maybe that gets added in there. Maybe it goes curiosity, exploration, belief, decision, catalyst, action, motion, momentum, change, and growth. But it's somewhere in there. And all of this, my need to explore this idea stems from a conversation I was having. I think it's a pretty common, relatively common conversation, right? Here's where I am, and it's not where I want to be. Someone's saying this, and yet they're not doing anything about it. Maybe you've seen this in your kids. Maybe you've seen this with a client. Maybe you've seen this with a significant other. I mean, who knows? But where I am is not where I want to be. And this relates to a conversation I was having recently. Where I am is not where I want to be. I'm feeling burnout. It's what I'm doing is no longer fulfilling. These kinds of complaints, I guess. It's realities, not to diminish the feelings or the experience at all. And so as we're talking about it, they had some ideas. That's part of my question is, what would you rather be doing? What would be fulfilling? Go in that direction. And they had a few ideas and they were fully formed ideas. Well, if I did this, and it came, they were fully formed ideas that had expectations of results attached to them, which I think is dangerous. Right? If we see something, hey, why why did you want to become an accountant? Well, I really love numbers and I heard they can make a lot of money, whatever. Or, any, you can come up with any number of examples of things kind of going awry because someone made a decision, not because it aligned with them, not because it met their passion or their why or something like that, but because of the promise of a result. And then lo and behold, results may vary, right? But so I was having this conversation and this is what was coming up. Well, if I did this, if I did that, again, fully formed ideas, fully baked ideas with expectations of results, specific results, and the reality is that they've been thinking about this and talking about this for a while and haven't done anything about it, haven't taken action. So, okay, well, we're not going to walk that way. It's flooded. Sorry. I'm kind of exploring. It's been storming here for about 2.5 days now, and some areas are flooded. And so, anyway, back to the story. And so they haven't taken action on any of these things, and that's I'm trying to hold a space where I'm not being judgmental of that. I'm just exploring that, curious about that. And that led me to this topic, this exploration today. What is it in the journey to growth? What is it that keeps us from moving from curiosity, if that is, in fact, the sort of the beginning of the growth journey? What is it that keeps us from moving from curiosity to action through the steps? So one of the things that I think we could all immediately identify is that I can list off the steps to growth: curiosity, exploration. I'm adding some things: curiosity, exploration, belief, decision, catalyst, action, motion, momentum, change, growth. It's easy. That's however many, whatever that number is. 7. Curiosity, exploration, belief, decision, catalyst, action, motion, momentum, change, growth. That's clean. 10. So that's 10 bullet points. And this isn't linear. There's nothing about life that's linear. I'm walking over here in my neighborhood from my house to the coffee shop in a city that's laid out on a grid. And okay, granted, my neighborhood doesn't necessarily fall into the grid because of some natural features and some topography, et cetera, some design, but even in a grid system, there are all these exceptions, right? There's nothing that's actually linear. Life doesn't happen in the linear. And so we know that. We know that. The steps to growth are fantastic, but it's almost never going to be a linear path. Oh, that sounds interesting. All of a sudden, I've changed into something different. Right? It doesn't work that way. And this idea of the messy middle starts to come in. The obstacles, the challenges that stand in the way of us going from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. The fear, the anxiety. One of the things I was really curious about was the idea of overthinking. And if you've read, you're here on Substack. If you've read the About section in my Substack, the Sandbox, I talk about the fact that I have all these whiteboards and whatever. I've got 36 square feet of whiteboards, which for frame of reference, is like a wall, a full wall, and they're all completely covered at this point. And the honest truth about these is, the reality about these is, they've got all this whiteboard space, which is fantastic. I can do brainstorming, I can write down ideas, I can work things out, and really what's on those whiteboards is stuff that I've written there, and 99% of the stuff on there I have not taken action on. What's stopping? Is it overthinking? It's not lack of curiosity. It's not lack of ideas. Is it paralysis by analysis? I think a lot of us suffer from these things. I think no matter what I attribute it to, it's the messy middle. It's what some growth experts refer to as the messy middle. It's the obstacles, it's the challenges, it's the squirrels, the shiny objects, it's the fear, the anxiety, the imposter syndrome. It's all of those things. It's easy to say, oh, if I get curious about my situation, whatever that is, I need to increase my income, or I need to uh, do something that is less stressful, or I need to find a new job, a new career, or something like that is more aligned with what I've grown, the person that I've grown into being. Whatever the thing is, it could be myriad of different reasons there. But whatever those things are, it's easy for me to say, hey, I want to, or I need to do this. And then something else entirely to say, oh, here's an idea. Here's a way that I could get out of that, or I could do this, or I could start this. And then it's something else entirely again to actually go from this idea, this curiosity about, changing careers, or building a new type of business, or starting a new relationship, or, whatever we're talking about in terms of growth, personal growth, or relationship growth, or professional growth. Storm brought a tree down somewhere. Creek's high. But where was I? It's one thing to get to that point of curiosity, to have some ideas, even to start exploring those ideas, and something else completely different to actually get to the point where we're taking action. No matter how much we believe that we need to change, or that we can change, or that the change could be beneficial, however we want to look at it, however we think about it, it's just not that easy. It's not that straightforward. And I need to do some more research on what these growth experts call the messy middle. What all goes into that? What all of that means. But when I started reading that, I felt that. I felt that in my soul, because I think that's, for as much as I was frustrated by this conversation that I was having, and not understanding what is holding this person back, which also tells me that I was going against one of my core beliefs, that if we show up without judgment, but with curiosity and kindness. That's the key to everything that's good, everything that's right. Yeah, I think my frustration, my lack of understanding comes out of a violation of that idea. But I feel the idea of the messy middle in the reason that this person that I was talking to is struggling. My pursuit of understanding why they're struggling, I think my understanding of that hinges on understanding the messy middle and acknowledging the reality that this isn't linear, that growth isn't linear. Also, well, we'll leave resilience out of it today. I don't think that necessarily tracks exactly with where I need to go with this. But morning, Nicole. But I think that messy middle, right? What is that? I baked something in the oven this morning, and the messy middle is in fact fantastic. maybe that's an analogy for growth, and maybe that's a good lesson, because I look at this, and again I came to this exploration today with frustration, and rather than um, sort of the joy of saying, hey, I get to try to understand the human experience. I saw something, I think it was last night, the story of Sisyphus, the myth of, am I saying his name right? Sisyphus. He's pushing the rock up the hill. Sisyphus defied the gods, and so they cursed him to push this big boulder up the mountain or up the hill. And then, of course, the reality is that once he gets up here, it rolls back down, right? And so he's over and over and over, he's pushing the rock up the hill. And I came across this post. I think I saved it because I want to think more about it. But Albert Camus, I guess, famously postulated that Sisyphus was happy, right? That if we truly want to understand, we often make the mistake that the gods cursed Sisyphus. I feel like I'm saying his name wrong, but we often assume that because the gods cursed Sisyphus to keep pushing the rock up the hill, that this was like some sort of torture, like he's doing this over and over. Like this is his lot in life, to keep pushing this rock up the hill. And I don't know exactly, I haven't read the whole thing or looked into why to Camus his idea that Sisyphus was happy, but it could be, well, if he kept pushing the rock up the hill, then he must have been happy, right? If not, he would have stopped. But what if he was happy? We see this as perseverance. We see this as torture. All these things. This myth of Sisyphus, and I've never seen or heard this before in my life. But what if he was happy? What if he actually accepted the fact that, the pursuit of humanity, the pursuit of life is the endeavor, right? It's the doing the things, it's the living of life. Sometimes we just have to live life. I guess this is getting us dangerously close to a conversation about perseverance, but that's a bad thing. But I think that's part of the error in my thesis. The reason I wanted to explore these ideas is that I kind of assumed that that somebody having these ideas and never taking action is a bad thing. What if this person is still in the exploration, is still in the search for meaning, still in the search for what does actually fulfill them, align with them, excite them, energize them, etc. A lot of assumptions there, I guess. Just get an alert. I think that said a 4.9 earthquake in Louisville. Is that what I just read? That's only 2 hours south of here. I would have thought that we would have felt a little bit. Maybe the military thing is right. Maybe the new Madrid fault is about to have a big shift and destroy the Midwest, as has been taught to Midwestern kids for generations now. Maybe this is the end times. Sorry to go off on that tangent. Anyway, the messy middle. Getting back to the messy middle. What is it? What is the messy middle? I will be doing more research on that. Finding more definitions and getting a better understanding. But I think we can intuitively understand a lot of it. Right? Again, growth isn't linear. The path between curiosity and action is not linear. And so, another problem with my assumption, with my frustration, is that I guess on the surface, I'm saying that if you become curious about something, then you're necessarily going to take the steps to action. And I'm ignoring the fact that I've already put in there the requirement that you have to have enough curiosity to develop a belief. Not everybody's going to believe. Not everybody's going to get to that point of belief. You can say, hey, this sounds like a great idea, but never actually get to that. And I mean like a real belief. Like, oh, I believe that this is going to change my life kind of belief. I think I'm discounting some of those things. And we can't discount them. It is not, it's not for us to discount. Okay. Well, enough introspection for the moment. If this is the end times, as reported by some military commanders in a potential major earthquake along the New Madrid Fault, if that is in fact what I read, then I'm going to go have my last espresso. Thanks for walking with me today. See you tomorrow.